Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is, comes at, closing the story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and with the great lesson that we have heard and learned from it. Then the third part, if you remember the first part, talking about the celestial body, the oath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the denial of the disbelievers of the resurrection. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them all the proof that we have studied the first part. The second part, give us the example of those who also disbelieved and what was their end and their outcome, to lay down for us very important divine law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah, how He deals with the disbelievers and how He deals with the believers. So this is the ibrah, and this is the ibrah, the lesson will benefit those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liman yakhsha. Now the surah continue for the third part to bring another aspect of reflection. So you have the celestial bodies, all what in the unseen from travel of the angel, وَالَّذِعَاتِ غَرْقًا وَالنَّاشِطَانِ نَشْطًا, etc. And then the way how the resurrection is going to happen, the day of judgment, and so on. And then we're talking about Musa and Fir'aun. This is another type, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talking to the heart, talking to the mind, and talking to the intellect, talking to the brain, how someone need to reflect. And all of this to help us as a believer, when you study and ponder the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to use all your cognitive ability, to use all what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you to connect, to reflect, and to increase the certainty in your heart of this journey that you have in this life. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He said in the ayah 27, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاء بَنَاهَا. Now, which is harder to create, you or the sky? Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continued to give a specification. رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا وَأَغْطَشَ لَيْلَهَا وَأَخْرَجَ ضُحَاهَا وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا أَخْرَجَ مِنْهَا مَاءَهَا وَمَرْعَاهَا وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. So this part is profounded in a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking a question. So this is يقول المفسر هنا انتقال من الاعتبار بأمثال من الأمم الذي هي وتخويف وتهذيب على تكذيبهم إلى إبطال شبهتهم على نفي البعث. So here the speech is shifting from, to give them the example of nation before them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punished because of their denial and rejection of the path, to also continue to give them another proof to show that whatever they claimed of the rejecting the resurrection is false. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bringing to attention the whole subhanallah creation around you as a proof and evidence to the resurrection. How this is how been introduced? Because they said, أَإِنَّ لَمَرْدُودُونَ فِي الْحَرْ. Are you going back to our old habit, or going back to the life? So here, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا. يقول هنا الاستفهام تقرير. So this is an interrogative, style. Here is rhetorical, intended. Why this one? When we said, are you harder in the creation than the heaven? To compel them to admit first that the creation of the heaven and the earth is far greater than their own creation. Because look the style. No one will have, crossed his mind to think who's harder to create. Like just in a rational way. Myself as a human being or all this cosmos. So you see, even subhanAllah, in every ayah denote, the miraculous nature of the Quran, and every ayah also denote that is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who will ask such a question? So someone want to challenge you, will challenge you in things that you can control, that you have skill to do, building cars, building planes, building things. But someone say, who's greater, you your creation or the creation of the heaven and the earth. So here is really first to bring them to think. Second, also to compel them to admit that the creation of the heaven and the earth is greater than their creation. Then they know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the heaven. فَلَا جَرْمَ أَنَّ الَّذِي قَدَرَ عَلَى خَلْقِ السَّمَاءِ قَادِرٌ عَلَى خَلْقِ الْإِنسَانِ. So if they know that the creator of the heaven and the earth is Allah, therefore He is their creator too. So they cannot deny that. وَلَئِن سَأَلْتَهُم مَّنْ خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ لَيَقُولُنَّ اللَّهُ. If you ask them who created the heaven and the earth, they say Allah. And today people, they said, they admit that there is like what they call the intelligent design. If the intelligent design, what is intelligent design? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You call it nature, you call it substance, you call it things, you call it the first thing, the energy, whatever you wanted to give it a name, is just to water it down to avoid to say God. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, when someone reflecting the creation of the heaven and the earth, if you see it just with an abstract eye, without any contemplation, what he's going to see? He's going to see gases, accumulation of, subhanAllah, gas and things. That does not have any meaning. That's why, one of the author, when he was reflecting as scientist, he said, the more we go deeper in the analysis of the cosmos, the more we know about it, it seems there is no purpose to continue our study. Because all what we see, substance, particles, gases, what's this? So if you do not relate it to a purpose, do not relate it to a mission, to a message, it does not mean anything. For example, it's like you take the air and you want to reflect on the air. What is the air? But when you realize that the air, the only thing that will give you permission to live, that's what you need to breathe, then the earth has a totally different definition. If you give me the definition, the chemical definition of the water, say H2 and 1 oxygen, what does it mean? It does not mean anything. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does not put in the Quran the composition of the water is from hydrogen to an oxygen. He's going to tell you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we give life, we made everything living from water. So then you understand the mission of the water to give you life. And who's able to do such a thing? So you see, when people, for example, they want to seek the fundamental or the foundation of certain knowledge from science, they are deluding people and remove them from the true way of understanding and the right path of reflection. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala قال, when you look in a beautiful way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the beginning of Surah Al-Mulk, look at the sky. Do you see any variance? Do you see any flaw? And then look back. Your own sight comes back to you in regret because they cannot find anything. And it's in a very metaphorical way, eloquent way, amazing for a person to realize they cannot do anything to what is created and they cannot find any flaw. So here, a beautiful saying of the author, the scholar of Tafsir here, قال ذلك أن نظرهم العقلي غيمت عليه العادة. So how can we understand their denial, their rejection? He's saying, because their rational thinking was clouded by habit. And this is very important for us. So they deemed anything unfamiliar is impossible. Anything unfamiliar is impossible. What is called miracle? The thing that is unfamiliar. But subhanAllah, there is, abundance of miracle every second. Every plant it grows is a miracle. Every baby born is a miracle. But it becomes familiar. So you see it like as granted something, So he's saying beautifully here, the rational thinking, as it was clouded by habit, so they deemed anything unfamiliar is impossible. فَجَعَلُوا مَا لَمْ يَأْلَفُوهُ مُحَالًا وَلَمْ يَلْتَفِتُوا. But they didn't pay attention and they failed the possibility of something even greater, like the heaven and the earth. They didn't even think about it. They made themselves to be to come back to life. This is impossible. Well, look at the heaven and the earth. that actually what the lead to understand your own self and to understand your own creation. So there's here what it has been called the desensitization effect. And it's really, subhanAllah, especially living in a materialistic world, what this lifestyle causing to us is to be desensitized. Desensitized from the true message, desensitized from the purpose of life, desensitized from what is or what are truly the priorities in our life. Miracles in abundance around you, but you do not see them. Every tree is a miracle. Every animal you see outside, running outside here in the park or in your backyard or in front yard is a miracle, subhanAllah. That is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why I said, أَأَنْتُمْ أَشَدُّ خَلْقًا أَمِ السَّمَاءِ. Look at yourself, then look at the heaven. You are denying like the origin, the essence of the creation. You are denying that if you came randomly, then you decide how to go to end. That's the problem. So when they make a beginning, which is, coincidence and things that happen randomly with no design, with no irada, with no will, therefore you have the right at that moment to decide how you're going to end. They said we're going to be like, وَمَا يُهْلِكُنَا الدَّهْرُ. Each time who's really caused us to degenerate, to go, and people they come back, other people they come, to succeed, and so on. So by denying the origin of the creation, they make themselves, or they allow to themselves to define how the end is going to happen. I mean, you can define. As you're saying, our end is in the grave, and then we spread all over and becomes like, fertilizing the earth or things like people that they imagine. But there is no comeback. Why there is no comeback? Because unfamiliar is impossible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, look at the heaven and the earth. So really, the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the element that help you to combat the desensitization, because the desensitization put you in the side of heedlessness, and when you are heedless, then it corrupts your view of the universe around you. When things becomes a habit, familiar, then you do not have that refreshed sight and illuminate insight to help you to be grateful. Someone, his health is familiar. I mean, it's habit. He wake up in the morning, jump out of bed, strong, I was, listen to one of the shuyukh, mashallah, he get to an old age. He said, we have been invited to a place, we have to go up the stairs like 2 floors. He said after the first, get to the first floor, I was out of breath. And then I was reflecting again, subhanAllah, when I was younger, I passed this floor, like running, like a lightning. Not anymore. For subhanAllah, when someone is young, you take it as granted. Many people, they say, why you are limping? He said, subhanAllah, happened all of a sudden. No, it was like building itself gradually. We came to the point that's it, is out of order. But subhanAllah, when we taste the sujood, when a person have a back pain, he cannot even bend. He wish for Allah to give him his health back so he can make sujood. Right? Many of you, maybe they went through this. I mean, sometimes, make the bed movement and his back get into sharp pain. He cannot even make sujood. So that desensitization effect is the killer of the iman. It kills your iman. The Prophet ﷺ taught us to be grateful to Allah for the gift of life every morning. Every morning. For the gift of iman every moment. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when happened, every people, many of those ignorant Arab who accepted Islam at the time of the Prophet, they came surrendering. But when the Prophet ﷺ passed away, many of them, they reverted because they didn't have the true Iman in their heart. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, since till he died, he recited a dua in every rak'ah. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا. Ya Allah, do not deviate our heart after you have guided us. Because you see other people deviated, you might be next, right? So then that awareness, that consciousness of the gift that you have, how to preserve it? With the shukr, with being grateful, with being aware of it. So the desensitization effect, remember, it is the killer of the iman. It kills the khushu' in your salah. It makes you someone who forget the remembrance. It makes you someone far from Allah, more keen to be indulged into the worldly life things. Now, we might be removed from all that distraction by a news of a death of a dear person, by a difficulty, by something happening to our life who likes, take all our attention. Then you realize afterward that all those difficulties, they were way from Allah as a mercy to help you remove yourself from that desensitization. You will see in the Day of Judgment that all the difficulties that you went through, or some of us are going through, or that you're going to be going through in your life, in your journey, that was the pure blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. معنى أشد خلقا أأنتم, are you أشد أصعب, more complex. So when you look at the creation of a human being, it's a universe in itself, the human being. But when you look at the cosmos outside, subhanAllah, around you, you realize what is more difficult or more complex, because nothing is difficult for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But with our, intellect, what is this big thing that is held in itself, subhanAllah, by the will of Allah. Inna Allah yumsiku as-samawati wal-arda an tazula. Allah, He's holding the heaven and the earth to not cease. This ayah is beautiful, subhanAllah, in Surah Fatih, so profound. Can you imagine, is that like switch, a light switch? That's how is our life. Can you imagine there is a switch, if it turned off, the whole here, or all of us here in the masjid, we fall dead. All of us, like switch. There is a switch, if it's turned off, the whole cosmos will collapse, will end, will cease, instantly. There is, they have some program in the past, they call it supernova or something, talking about the space and the outer space and everything. I liked a scientist, he said something about something that it might happen in the outer, space, of a surge of certain, energy, that subhanAllah, if it reach earth, life will end instantly. He said the good news that you will not even realize that it happened. If you realize it, you'll be already dead. Who's protecting the earth from such a thing? Inna Allah yumsiku as-samawati wal-arda an tazula. Allah is holding the heaven and the earth, lest it ceases. It ceases. Everything will collapse. It's like switch. Everything will collapse. Everything will fall down. Everything will die. And if, subhanAllah, they're going to cease or inclining or going to collapse, is there anyone than Allah who can hold it? So you see, when you think this way, it increases your iman. It increases your knowledge of Allah. Therefore, it increases your glorification of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قال والبناء. ما معنى بناء؟ بناء is construct. For example, constructing a house or a dwelling from stone, from bricks, from a tent out of wooden hair. قال ومن أشعارها وأوبارها متاعا وأثاثا لكم, etc. So this is the constructing is erecting, a foundation or put it on support. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is constructing the heaven, so this is referred to their creation. وَسَمَاء بَنَاهَا. He didn't say created. So here this metaphorical way how to introduce it here, to give you the building as subhanAllah, to give you that sense of compare it to every building that what you see around you. For this reason in two ayat, قال الله سبحانه وتعالى رفع السماوات بغير عمد ترونها. He has erected, raised, subhanAllah, elevated the heaven without pillars. For which is mean like subhanAllah, you look at it, you said, this is only air. Yeah, that's what you see. قال use it due to their resemblance to houses in terms of elevation. قال أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها رفع سمكها. Subhanallah, الرفع والسمك is the same thing. What it means as samk is to elevate up in the air. So here والرفع is raising. So it's like raising upon raising, So it's like rafa'a samka. To see also the miraculous nature of the Quran is in eloquency. He didn't say and he raises and raised it. قال رفع سمكها. So it making something elevated in height, and the synonym of it is samak, is elevation. So it really kind of raising connection with high to emphasis the meaning of how it gets higher and higher. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very high. He raised it a great raising. That's what it means. For example, he said, if you say the darkness of the night, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying how dark is the night, you use like two adjectives are not the same, but to emphasize on a very particular aspect. But they are subhanAllah meaning the same. It's like here, rafa'a samkaha. So it's like his height has been raised, to emphasize on subhanAllah, on the elevation. So that's what means samkaha. قال رفع سمكها. And then comes التسوية. رفع سمكها فسواها is subhanallah, it's like make it here saying التسوية التعديل وعدم التفاوت. التعديل is to make the last touch, if you can say, and to make it like flawless. Everything coherent, everything is harmonious, everything subhanallah is flawless. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, anyone who's denying the creation of Allah, that is creation, قال look at the sky, you see any futur? You see any flaw? فارجع النظر قال يرجع إليك النظر خاسئا وهو حسير. You'll try your best to see any flaw, you cannot find it. So that's what means فسواها. That's what means فسواها. رفع سمكها فسواها. وأغطش ليلها. أغطش ليلها جعله غاطشا. غاطش, what it mean? غاطش mean dark, ظلام. قال أنه خص الليل بالظلم. So there's an aspect very important. قال رفع سمكها فسواها وأغطش ليلها. He made its night to be dark. Which is mean the night could have been light. So there's a will, there is a choice. Allah made the choice for the night to be dark. Subhanallah. So you see, Allah has willed for the night to be dark, which is mean there is a coherence between the creation and the nature of the human being. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what He said, for example, in Juz Amma, قَالَ وَالنَّوْمَ وَجَعَلَ لَكُمُ النَّوْمَ سُبَاتًا وَاللَّيْلَ لِبَاسًا. What it mean, layl libas? Libas is like a garment, it's like a cloth. Subatan in, there's no activity. So the darkness of the night goes with the need of the nature of the human being to rest, to have everything quiet, to have everything calm around you so you can rest. Which is meaning like Iqtashul Layli was perfected, was designed based on the design of the human being. Subhanallah. And this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in many other ayat. So for example, an atheist who comes say why the night is dark? I'm going to tell you because the sun, sets at the night. What is the wisdom? So there is no wisdom for them. It ends there. It's end there. وإخراج الضحى أخرج أغطش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها. Bringing forth the forenoon means making the light of the forenoon visible. So it's Allah's will to make the night to be dark and the night to be light. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَجَعَلْنَا اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ آيَتَيْنِ فَمَحَوْنَا آيَةَ اللَّيْلِ وَجَعَلْنَا آيَةَ النَّهَارِ مُبْصِرَةً لِتَبْتَغُوا فَضْلًا مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَلِتَعْلَمُوا عَدَدَ السِّنِينَ وَالْحِسَابِ. So Allah gave us here, an atheist tell him, okay, what's the wisdom behind it? Allah give you the wisdom. We made the night to be dark, and we make the night or the day to be visible. For you, so you seek the means and your livelihood during the day. And also as a means for you to make the calculation of the day and the night. So you know the calculation of the days, of the month, of the year and everything. Subhanallah. إنما جعل إظهار النور إخراجا. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said we make the day, قال أخرج, brought forth is daylight. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not why, but to understand the wisdom of the term ikhraj, brought it out. He said the light to come after the darkness, because darkness is synonym of adam, nothingness, and it comes before the existence. So it comes أغتش ليلها وأخرج ضحاها. It's like you bring it to light, bring it to existence after it didn't exist. والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها. Inshallah, we'll finish with this paragraph بإذن الله تعالى, and then we'll continue next time بإذن الله. Briefly. So, duhur al-ard, what it means, spreading of the earth. Refers to its smoothing of the spreading of its crust, making it suitable for walking upon, forming soil fit for vegetation, and anchoring the mountain, وَالْجِبَالَ أَرْسَاهَا, which result from the stabilization of the earth. Surface is temperature, reaching a balance that allows for life. And Allah brought forth its water from the earth, the ma, أخرج منها ماء, whether it gushes from springs or descends from the sky. And you know the cycle that evaporated and the return as rain and so on. And He brought forth the pastures, plants consumed by human and animals, sustaining living being either directly or indirectly. So then when you think about it, this cannot be random, subhanallah. I mean, how this earth was spread to be dahaha, and have the water to come out, and the passer, and the stabilization by subhanallah, the pillar on the earth, which are the mountain. So there is subhanallah tadbir, there is management, there is care, there is watching, there is subhanallah one who's making this the canopy or to be protected and a place of abode for the special creation that he called human being. There is nothing alike up to now in science like the earth in this whole subhanallah millions of constellation around us. All of that took place after the building of the heaven, after the darkening of the night and the bringing forth of the forenoon. And then he's saying that modern astronomical theories come close to the meaning of this Quran verse, where they propose that the earth existed hundreds of millions years, rotating with the alternation of the night and the day before it was spread out, before it became suitable for cultivation, and before its crust settled into its current form of elevation and flatness. So subhanallah, we're not saying how the Quran and the science they converge, no, but we're saying this is the word of Allah for us to reflect, for us to understand that there is a hand who took care of that. There's a hand that is known by His mercy, by His care, by He is the loving kind subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this place of dwelling. Now the question, as he's saying, قَالَ مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ all of that, قَالَ مَتَاعًا لَكُمْ وَلِأَنْعَامِكُمْ. So this is as means of sustenance for you and your animals. The question that inshallah I'll invite everyone to reflect on, how can you make a bridge between what we talked about and the certain existence of the hereafter? So these, what we have studied today, is the strongest evidence for the resurrection. How that? How can you connect the dot? Inshallah we'll study it together next time, but this is for us. We don't want to be talking from one side, but invite you to make tadabbur, to reflect, to read, and you'll find your own answer that you will help you inshallah in da'wah. If someone talking to you, you will prove for them the existence of the resurrection by this understanding and then deflection on this beautiful ayat inshallah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan wa barakallahu. If you have any question, you are welcome.